So basically, I asked the AI, "Do you think a UBI is a good idea for Canada?" Let's see what it comes up with. This is a question I can actually run the numbers on, which is more useful than a thumbs up or down. And I'll flag where it stops being arithmetic and becomes a value and becomes a values call. Okay, so when it stops being arithmetic and becomes a values call, I should leave you with. I should leave with you. Let me verify the current fiscal figures so the math is solid. All right. So it's gonna talk about the arithmetic, and then when it becomes a values call, it'll tell me. Let's see. This is the kind of question where I can give you something more useful than a verdict, the actual arithmetic and the predictable effects, and then I'll be honest that whether it's beneficial lands on a value judgment. I'd rather leave with you than put my thumb on, because universal basic income desirability is genuinely contested and maps onto real disagreements about redistribution and the size of the state. Let me build it up. What a $300 a month actually cost? Start with the scale. 300 a month is 3,600 a year per person. Canada's population is about 41 million as of mid 2025, but every citizen trims that. It excludes the roughly 2.85 million non-permanent residents, plus the several million permanent residents who aren't yet citizens. So you're looking at roughly 35 to 36 million citizens. And the single biggest design choice you didn't specify is whether children count. If children have to count. If you do a UBI, in my opinion, children have to count. Now, you would, in my opinion, you would provide the UBI to the parent of the child, at least until that child is like maybe like 14 or something. And then you would put half to the parent, half to like a fund they would get when they become 18. Um, Obviously, like that's all open for like not hard values at all there. Um, but I think you would need to provide the UBI for children as well. If it's every citizen, including kids, that gross count runs up 130 billion per year. You see, I think that's doable. Like currently, we pull in between 300 and 400 billion per year with our current tax rate, and like there were times where the tax rate was significantly higher. Like we are in an era of low taxes right now. Our taxes are still higher than the US, but the US has had higher taxes in the past, significantly higher taxes in the past. Like the Gilded Age, to come out of that, they rose their taxes massively. And it, in my opinion, fixed a lot of the problems. And so generally high taxes fix the problems, but 130 billion per year, um, I think you could do that with a tax raise, because like the UBI generates growth, and I think you would actually create more rich people with a UBI, because there'd be more wealth out there, more for people to essentially collect, right? Um, Even if they face higher taxes in it, you would probably face less of the super rich, but more rich, right? I don't know. Let's continue. Around 130 billion per year. Adults only knock it down towards. I mean, this is the number you probably look at. To anchor that, 130 billion. It's a bit over 4% of Canada's. 3 trillion GDP and roughly a quarter of all current federal program spending. Okay, so my number was a little low. Program spending is actually closer to 470 billion. Maybe I'm just thinking of an old number. So that is approximately what we currently spend as the federal government. But that is, like, I don't like to fully include that because a lot of that is debt. Like, I think we're running like high double digit billions in debt this year. And so around 400 billion is what you pull in actual tax revenue. Funding it through taxation means raising federal revenue by something like 25%. In per adult terms, you need to collect on the order of 4,000 to 7,000 more per adult on average, though weighted towards higher earners as you specified. Wait, so you're providing that. Wouldn't you just need to charge the average person that? I get that there'd be a little bit of an overrun because of bureaucracy, but my idea is that you would be simplifying other aspects of the bureaucracy. Like, if people were getting some kind of other social services, that could be rolled into this. Probably not at this scale though. Like we're talking about a scale at 300 a month. It'd have to be larger to roll everything else in. Okay, let's continue. The gross numbers dramatically overstate the real cost. Okay, here's the crucial point your design actually gets right. And it's the same gross versus net distinction from the PBO costing I mentioned at the start. Most of that 130 billion is money taken from people and handed straight back to the same people. That is fine. I don't mind that at all. A high earner gets their 360 but pays far more than 360 in additional taxes. So the dividend is recaptured immediately. The economic meaningfulness figure isn't the 130 flowing out the door. It's the net redistribution. The amount actually moving from the top of the income ladder to the bottom. Probably more like 40 to 60 billion. Plus the effectiveness cost, efficiency cost of the higher tax rate. When critics throw around scary gross numbers for UBI, this is the sleight of hand to watch for. When advocates quote tiny net numbers, they're hiding the efficiency cost. Both numbers matter. Okay. So it would cost 130 billion. But when you look at actual like redistribution, money going from the top to the bottom, it's probably only around 40 to 60 billion because universal is universal for a reason. And this disproportionately will massively fall on the highest taxpayers. In my opinion. Okay. When critics throw around scary gross numbers, both numbers matter. Yep. So people, it's saying that some people throw around figures like this, and other people throw around tinier numbers. They both matter. Clean way to see it, because everyone gets a flat 3,600, but the tax to fund it is weighted to higher incomes. There's a break-even point somewhere in the middle of the distribution. Below it, you receive more than your taxes rise, net beneficiary. Above it, net contributor. A family of 4 below the break-even point collects 14,400 a year in benefits, which is genuinely substantial. Ooh, like that is. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, you think 300 a month and it's not a large amount of money, but then you family of 4 over a year, that's actually a significant amount. Now, this is assuming, right? Like, this would be if you had no income, because obviously, if you had some kind of income, you're paying some kind of taxes, and then that's you're moving up towards the line where you're a net beneficiary if you're below the line, or a net contributor if you're above the line. What we can predict with reasonable confidence: poverty and hardship fall, but it's a supplement, not a cure. 3,600 a year is only about 15% of Canada's poverty line for a single person, so it won't lift someone over that line alone. But for someone with near zero income, it's a real floor. And for families with children, the per head structure adds up fast. The distributional effect is unambiguously progressive. A flat dollar amount is a bigger proportional boost at the bottom, and progressive funding takes more from the top. This is the clearest benefit. So poverty and hardship fall, not a cure. Obviously, at the level we're talking about, won't be a cure. I don't know if it'll ever become something that can, like, you can live on, at least in our lifetime. Like, we're talking, the robots would basically have to take over everything before you could try and do something like that. But, I mean, it's a supplement. It would indeed help. Labor supply barely moves and might improve at the very bottom. This is where everything from the Alaska discussion pays off. 3,600 is far too little to live on, so essentially nobody quits work over it. The people will stop working fear applies to live on it UBIs, not a supplement this size. And Alaska showed even a universal permanent payment produces no aggregate employment drop because of general equilibrium offsets. There's actually a point in its favor here. A universal payment isn't clawed back dollar for dollar as you earn, the way provincial social assistance often does. Like, ideally, you could use it to replace social assistance. But obviously it will likely have to be higher for that. So it can reduce the welfare wall, the brutal effective tax rate that currently punishes low-income people for taking work. Higher income taxes. Okay. The higher income taxes used to fund it would mildly dampen incentives higher up. But $300 a month is small enough that it's moderate. The other thing is, like, when you do this, you would take the richest, right? And you would reduce their wealth a little bit. But what would actually happen is you'd get more rich. Like, more people would open a barber shop that is successful. More people would be able to build housing that is successful because there's more money, and more people are spending more money. And so all of your, non-tradable goods, there would be more. This would cause an increase in demand, therefore there would be an increase in supply. As long as there were no shenanigans with housing, which you would have to address, obviously, probably externally to this, but you would generally see an increase in supply, and I say that's good. The higher income tax used to fund it would mildly dampen incentives higher up, but $300 a month is small enough that this is moderate. Inflation risk is limited, with housing the glaring exception. I mean, it directly says that. You would have to handle housing, which our government is currently not doing well. What are they doing? Buying condos from condo developers that are going under? Like, come on. Can't you figure this out? As we discussed, a tax-funded UBI reshuffles existing money rather than printing it, so it isn't broadly inflationary the way deficit financed cash would be. Most consumer goods are tradable and won't bid up in price. The real danger is supply constrained non-tradables, and Canadian housing, already in an acute supply crunch, is exactly that. It tightens rental markets. Some of the benefit at the bottom would be captured by landlords as higher rents. This is the strongest argument that a Canadian UBI would need to be paired with housing supply policy, or a chunk of it leaks straight into property to property owners. Like as I said, you just need, the biggest thing in my understanding is that you must take zoning away from municipalities and move it somewhere up the chain that doesn't have that direct, oh, this person complains and therefore I can't change anything. You got to remove that and move it up the municipality to where someone can take a statistical answer and control zoning based on what is needed, not what is wanted by the people. I think that's the biggest thing that would help our property market. The two genuine landmines. Okay, here we go. The efficiency cost is the main economic downside, and Canada's geography sharpens it. Raising 130-ish billion gross means pushing marginal tax rates up from already high levels. Top combined federal provincial tax rate sits around 48 to 54%. I mean, after the golden age, they went up to like, no, sorry, the gilded age. After the gilded age, they raised tax rates massively in the US, and it was an economic explosion down there. Like they raised tax rates and then provided services, and it absolutely skyrocketed their economy, from my understanding. So like top combined, so this is at the very highest end, they pay this. I wanna check that just to be sure, like I'm not. During or after the Gilded Age, what was the highest marginal tax rate? And what did the economy do at this tax rate? Okay, the downweight loss of taxation rises faster than the rate itself, so adding to high rates is costlier per dollar than earlier dollars were. What? The deadweight loss of taxation rises faster than the rate itself, so adding to high rates is costlier per dollar than the earlier dollars. Deadweight loss. What the heck is deadweight loss? Deadweight loss is a loss of economic efficiency that occurs when a market is not at its natural equilibrium, usually due to government interventions like taxes, subsidies, price ceilings, or monopolies. Deadweight loss. The deadweight loss of taxation rises faster than the rate itself, so adding to higher rates is costlier per dollar than earlier dollars were. And Canada has a competitiveness problem. The Nordics don't. Porous border with the lower tax United States. Ugh. we do have an issue with that. Which makes high earners and mobile capital more likely to leave. That's a real, not hypothetical constraint on how far this can be pushed. Federalism could quietly eat the whole thing. This is the Canadian-specific trap I flagged earlier. Income support is shared / provincial jurisdiction, so a federal UBI lands on top of provincial social assistance, and provinces would have every incentive to claw back their own welfare payments in response. Well, like, that is not necessarily bad. Like, the whole idea is that the UBI would eventually eat the welfare system in its entirety. Pocketing the federal, well, I mean, you say pocketing the federal money, but like you're also shaking this money out of them through higher taxes. So you're shaking the money out of them, and then they take some of it back. I mean, you're still profiting and providing the value. Pocketing the federal money to relieve their budgets rather than letting recipients keep both. Without an intergovernmental agreement locking that down, the benefit to the poorest could partly evaporate into provincial treasuries. This is a big part of why the PEI pilot stalled. There's also a structural question worth naming. $300 a month is too small to responsibly replace disability or social assistance. Yeah. People on those need far more than $6,300 a year. So realistically, it gets layered on top rather than swapped in. Well, I mean, like, if you increase this, you would decrease social insurance, replace disability or social assistance by $300 a month. So like that would come out to basically the same. So realistically, it gets layered on top rather than swapped in, which forfeits the simplify the whole welfare system. You can't do that at this level of it, right? Saving that makes UBI elegant on paper. Notably, Canada already runs quasi-UBIs for seniors and children. Universal working age 300 would mainly be filling the gap for working age adults, which is precisely where Canada transfers system is thinnest. Okay, let's see what its conclusion is. I was posing another question somewhere. Oh, that's a lot. We'll get back to that at the end. What's my time? Oh my goodness. Why did these go for so much longer than I expect? Let's finish here. So, beneficial, here's where it turns on what you're optimizing for, and reasonable, informed people genuinely split. If you weigh poverty reduction and economic security heavily and accept a somewhat larger, more redistributive state, this design is fairly attractive. The universality eliminates stigma and gets a near 100% take up. 300 is small enough to keep the efficiency costs constrained, and it can dismantle the welfare wall. If you weigh growth, competitiveness, and a lean tax burden, the financial cost and the cross-border flight risk weigh against it. And you'd argue the same money does more good either targeted at those who actually need it or left in the economy. And the sharpest technocrat critique cuts both ways. Sending 300 to millionaires looks wasteful, but means testing reintroduce exactly the application barriers, stigma, and welfare trap clawbacks that universality was meant to solve. That universality versus targeted trade-off is where the live crux of the whole debate, and it's a values question, not an empirical one, which is why I'll hand it to you rather than pretending to the analysts settle it. What I can say cleanly, a 300 a month version is squarely in modest, broadly affordable, low risk supplement territory rather than transformative. The predictable effects are real but bounded. The financing is large but not wild, And the make or break details are the child questions. Which child questions, do kids get it? Absolutely. The housing interaction, you need some kind of, I mean, you need the government in the housing system in some way, just statistically. And the federal provincial coordination, no idea what you can do there. Far more than the headline idea itself. Okay. Yeah. So one, I think a UBI is inevitable. As robots continue to replace people, I don't think this technological revolution is like the last one. The last one moved people from farms to factories. Now we're moving people from factories to where exactly? Like, they're not working in data centers. They're not working on AI models. Arguably, you could say that AI makes people more efficient and therefore there is more demand for their work. But I'm going to be honest with you. Like, there is some people that working in their factory is their limit. Like, you will not be able to get them to work with highly advanced AI. I mean, someone's gonna dumb it down, right? Like, factory work was dangerous and technical at a time, and they dumbed it down. I imagine you could dumb down like, you can make the AI do so much. Think of it like in war right now, AI, the new Hornet drone from Ukraine can do a lot of the targeting and assessment on its own, and it just needs the confirmation from the human, like, oh, this is a legitimate target, this is not a legitimate target. And that's an easy job. That's a pretty easy job. You're just like, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, no, yes. Very easy. So it's possible that AI can make human work easy enough for the average or for the below average citizen to still be employed. Honestly, I don't know where it's going to go, but I suspect at some point a UBI is going to be necessary. There's benefits, there's also trade-offs. We also have the porous border with the US, which complicates it. Anyway, this was a quick look at it. Maybe I'll come back and experiment with it later.